£125 million. That is what Liverpool paid for one man. Not a team, not a trophy, one striker. And within 4 months of putting on the shirt, he had scored 4 goals and missed 28 games. If you think that sounds like a disaster, stay with me, because this Sunday, that same man walks back into the stadium where it all went wrong, and everyone there wants him to fail. This is the story of Alexander Isak, the most expensive gamble in English football history, and whether it was worth it is still being decided right now. Let's start with the number, because the number is the whole story. £125 million made Isak the most expensive player in British football history, not the most expensive in the world. The most expensive Britain had ever paid for anyone, ever. For that price, you could buy entire squads. You could buy managers, stadiums, decades of academy investment. Liverpool spent it all on one 25-year-old Swedish striker who, 12 months earlier, most casual fans outside England had barely heard of. So why him? To understand that, you have to go back to where this started. Isak grew up in Solna, just outside Stockholm, and broke into professional football with AIK while he was still a teenager. He was quick, technical, calm in front of goal, the kind of player scouts describe as different. Borussia Dortmund thought so too. They signed him at 17, one of the biggest man moves for a player his age. And then, almost nothing happened. Isak barely played. He was buried behind more established forwards, loaned out, shuffled around, and by the time most people were done writing him off, he ended up at Real Sociedad in Spain. That's where the story almost changes. In San Sebastian, away from the spotlight, Isak rebuilt himself. He became one of the most dangerous strikers in La Liga, quietly, without the noise that follows the biggest transfers. It's the classic pattern you'll recognize if you've followed enough of these careers. Talent gets rushed too early, breaks down, and only comes good once nobody's watching anymore. Then Newcastle happened, and this is the part of the story most people do know. Isak arrived at St. James's Park and turned into one of the most feared strikers in the Premier League. Across his time there, he scored over 50 league goals, became Newcastle's talisman, and helped drag the club back into a version of itself that hadn't existed in decades, winning silverware, competing in Europe, believing again. For Newcastle fans, Isak wasn't just a striker. He was proof the rebuild was real, which is exactly why what happened next hit so hard. Last summer, Isak wanted out. Liverpool came calling, and what followed was one of the ugliest transfer sagas English football has seen in years. Isak posted publicly that his relationship with Newcastle cannot continue, accusing the club of breaking promises made to him. He trained away from the first team. He sat out preseason. He missed the opening matches of the season, including, of all games, a fixture against the exact club chasing him. For weeks, it was a standoff, Newcastle refusing to sell cheap, Liverpool refusing to overpay, and Isak stuck in the middle, publicly at war with the club that made him a Premier League name. Liverpool's first bid was £110 million. Rejected. Their second offer came in at £125 million. And deep into deadline day, with the transfer window about to slam shut, Newcastle finally said yes. Isak got his move. Newcastle got a record fee. And a fan base that had spent 3 years falling in love with him was left to process a very public, very bitter breakup. Here's the part that should have been the fairy tale ending. Record fee, dream move, reigning champions. Instead, it became a cautionary tale almost immediately. Because Isak arrived at Liverpool, having barely trained for months, no proper preseason, no match sharpness, and football doesn't forgive that gap, no matter how much talent you have. He struggled from the opening weeks, anonymous in games where Liverpool desperately needed him to be the difference. Then, in December, it got worse. He suffered a broken leg, an injury that ended any hope of salvaging his first season. When it was finally over, the most expensive player in British football history had played a fraction of the campaign and scored just 4 goals. 4 goals for £125 million. If you're a Liverpool fan, that stat alone probably makes you wince. If you're a Newcastle fan, it's the kind of thing you can't stop smiling about. And if you're neither, it's just one of the most brutal case studies in modern transfer history. What happens when a move gets poisoned before the player has even kicked a ball? So where does that leave him now? This summer, Isak went to the World Cup with Sweden, got real minutes, and looked sharper than he had in over a year. He's come back into preseason at Liverpool insisting he's 100% fit, under a brand new head coach in Andoni Iraola, who inherits a Liverpool side searching for the version of Isak they paid for in the first place. Iraola's man management, his track record of getting the best out of talented, misused players, is about to be tested on the most expensive case study of his career. And now, the reunion. This Sunday, Isak returns to St. James's Park for the first time since the move, exactly 1 year on from the statement that ended things. Liverpool's season opener. Newcastle's chance to remind him exactly how they feel. Every camera in that stadium will be on one man, and it has nothing to do with tactics. Here's the question nobody can answer yet. Was the £125 million a genuine miscalculation? A striker who peaked at Newcastle and was never going to repeat it anywhere else? Or was last season simply what happens when you take a player who trained alone for months, throw him straight into a title race with zero match sharpness, and then break his leg 4 months in? Because those are two very different stories. One says Liverpool overpaid for a player who was never going to be worth it. The other says we haven't actually seen the real deal yet. Isak has 1 season now to answer that question himself. No transfer drama, no fitness excuse, no preseason chaos. Just a fully fit striker, a new manager who believes in him, and a reunion match that will either be remembered as the day he silenced his doubters or the day that summed up why £125 million looked like the biggest gamble in Premier League history. Which version of this story do you think we're going to get?